Hare Krishna. Well, today is a wonderful day. Today is Ram Vijaya Dasami. Hare. Hare Bol. It's a day to be celebrated all over India. It's a very special day. We need to make it a little bit more special here by remembering what it is about. Ram Vijaya Dasami is the Dashami in the month of Ashwin. And it is the Shukla Paksha. It is the bright fortnight when the moon is getting brighter. And Dashami is the 10th day, before the 11th day, which is known as Ekadashi. And after the 9th day, which is known as Navami. So Ashtami, Navami, Dashami, then Ekadashi. Then what comes? Dwadashi. Very good. So Dashami, this is how we calculate the calendar. And this day has been remembered for hundreds of thousands of years. Why this day? Because today is the day when Maryad Purushottam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his form as Lord Ramchandra, not only rescued Sita Devi, his eternal counterpart, but also defeated all obstacles that were in his way. Of course, for Leela, there is some jeopardy. What is the story if there's no drama? And what is the drama if there's no jeopardy? So you can imagine a human commentator asking the question halfway through, will Lord Ramchandra rescue Sita? Will Ravana be defeated? Will they get back to Ayodhya? How will they get back to Ayodhya? Find out in the next thrilling installment. But of course, if you say, the Supreme Lord came down to earth, there was no problems, he was blissful, everybody was defeated, the end. Would anybody read such a story? Not really. So we want some drama. So the Lord creates a drama. And it's a wonderful drama. And it's a drama that seems to have a lot more jeopardy than Krishna's story. When Lord Krishna is in Vrindavan, a demon comes, what happens? Is defeated. Is there ever any doubt? There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Sometimes in Krishna's Dwarka pastimes, Krishna has been accused of stealing the Shamantaka jewel. I wonder if Krishna's going to get his reputation back. Sometimes 16,000 queens have been stolen. Who will rescue them? But in Lord Ram's pastimes, there's not only drama, but there's also great, apparently accidental, what is it called? What's that one word that Valmiki uses? Yadrichaya, something like that. By accident. By accident, Dasarath, King Dasarath, had to give a boon, just by chance. Just by chance, he had to give a boon. Something happened on the battlefield. He was rescued, and he had to give a boon. Then, the story is told that just by accident, the hunchback, who could not see over the parapet, hello, young man. That's it. All obstacles are removed on the path of Krishna consciousness. So the hunchback, Mantara, she could not see the preparations for Lord Ram's coronation. She couldn't see them. She's a hunchback. Parapets are meant to keep things out, so she couldn't see over. Somehow or another, she was able to step on something and look over. At least there's one version of it. So she's able to look over and she's saying, my God, this is all for Ram. What about Bharat? What about Bharat? And within her heart was planted the seed of great envy. And so she went and began her machinations in the ears of Kaikeyi. So then, what else? By accident. Ram won Sita. By accident. He was able to, fortuitously, he was able to string the bow of Lord Shiva and win Sita. How is that possible? And then he was and then just by some accident, along came Ravana. Everything was going so smoothly. Everything was going so smoothly. They would have gone back to Ayodhya, and we wouldn't be telling this story today, were it not for Kar and Dushana. When Kar and Dushana turned up with 14,000 demons, they had to give battle. Were it not for Soparnak turning up, they wouldn't have had to do battle with the demons, right? Which came first? Suparnak. Suparnak came first or Kar and Dushana? Huh? Suparnaka. So she came first. Oh dear. Just by accident she's strolling along. Just by accident she happens upon... You know how many hundreds of square miles of forest there were? And she's just there. Yadrachaya. And then just by accident, all these other things happen. Just so happens that a monkey can fly and go across the ocean and find out the whereabouts of Sita. So all these wonderful elements of the story are all there because of some extra ingredient that was factored in. And the Supreme Director, Krishna says, Maya Adhyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. I'm in charge of everything. So Krishna is the prop master, he's the director, he's the producer. Don't you think he's going to produce a good story? He always produces a good story. He's the one that lives in the heart of Steven Spielberg. He's the one that lives in the heart of these directors who are trying to spin a good story and who now admit that some of their ideas were taken from the Ramayana anyway. Going into the forest, some little furry creatures helping them rescue the princess. He says, yes, I borrowed it. All right, I borrowed it. So, we have the Supreme Personality of Godhead making a story which is sufficient to spellbind all of human society thereafter. That's the story of the Ramayana. So on this day, we have the final conquest of Ravan. It's a great battle. It goes on for pages and pages and pages. Great battle. Monkeys die. Lakshman looks as if he's died. Ram is severely threatened. Indrajit dies. Kumbhakarna dies. All of these various personalities on the other side. And then finally it's the showdown. Finally they face each other. Ravana makes a big mistake. He doesn't know about Yani Kani, Chapapani, Brahmahatyadikani Cha, where we circumambulate only clockwise. He circumambulates Ram, incidentally, anti-clockwise. You know, this is chariot. He's looking at Ram, Ram's looking at him, but they circumambulate, and he circumambulates Ram anti-clockwise. And the sages say this is the beginning of his inauspicious passing. There's vultures in the sky already. Inauspicious omens. And eventually, Ram vanquishes him after challenging him. You know, usually before you execute someone, you say at least why they're being executed. You are hereby being executed for, and you read out their crime. So he says, you stole. How does it go? You should know this by heart. You've seen it so many times. You stole the food from the master's table in the absence of the master. Now I'll punish you. And of course, Ram vanquishes with a single arrow. He vanquishes Ravana. But this day is even special, even before Lord Ram made his appearance. I should say that this day is a very special day for, at least in South India, for initiations. if you're going to get initiated, you get initiated on Ramchandra Vijaya Dasami, because it's a festive day anyway. It's a day that you'll never forget. And it's a day when the emblem of good triumphed over the emblem of evil, when all the 10 heads, or the Dasa Vida Papa, the 10 forms of sin, are conquered over by Ram, the embodiment of victory. And so on today's date, you become initiated because you have made a determination, with the help of Ram, to conquer over your evil ways and to begin a new life. So this day in India, all the fire yajnas will be crackling. Then later on in the evening, the firecrackers will be crackling. Because today also they like to celebrate. So we have Dashahara, or in the north of India, Dussehra. They celebrate Dussehra today, young man? My Hindi expert? Yeah. They don't leave it for the weekend like we do. No. In India, everything comes on the lunar calendar. They don't have to celebrate on a Sunday. Sunday is a modern, relatively modern thing. But let me tell you that today is also a very special day, because it's the day when one great devotee was born, who gives his name to our sampradaya. And that, of course, is whose day today? Madhvacharya. That's right, Madhvacharya. But before we get on to that, I want to tell you the story. I want to tell you the story of a young disciple who had to pay his guru dakshina. Now, according to our culture, guru dakshina is something that you give your guru after initiation, which means that sometimes if someone else performs the initiation ceremony, you have to pay him as well. So you have to pay the guru and you have to pay him. Well, it gets all a bit expensive, doesn't it? Guru dakshina is actually what you give to the guru after you've learned everything. And only when the guru tells you, now I've taught you everything, that's when he says, now go, and your duty now is to bring some guru dakshina. He may not even say that, but you should know as a disciple. So it's in the conclusion of everything that you've learned. It's a lifetime gift, a once only lifetime gift. So there was a disciple. His name was Kotsa, and he was a disciple of Rishi Varatantra, or Varatantu. And he came to his guru after the guru said, now you've completed all your studies, now you can go home. There's another ceremony for that. So then he said, my master, he said, what can I bring you as guru dakshina? He said, no, you don't understand. He said, no. He said, I don't take guru dakshina. He said, I'm very happy. I'm happy that you've just learned. The guru dakshina for me is seeing that you're happy in your spiritual life, that you've learned everything, that now that you can become a teacher for others. That makes me happy. So then the disciple said, he made a mistake. He said, no, I want to give you something. That's a mistake. Never go to your guru and say, what can I do for you? Because you never know what he might say. Of course, that's the thing that you should say. Kinkara, I'm your servant. What can I do for you? So then the Rishi said, all right, if you want to give me something, you can give me 140 million gold coins. Well, just see, from nothing to something impossible. 140 million gold coins. You see, if someone in ISKCON was going to say that, he's an ISKCON guru, he wants each and every disciple to bring 140 million gold coins. That would be something to do, wouldn't it? He said, bring me 10 million gold coins for each of the 14 sciences that I've taught you. So then Kotsa, where's he going to get 140 million gold coins from? The only person that you can go to is a king. And he's living in Ayodhya. And this is many, 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 many years, generations before Ram is born. And this is King Raghuraj. King Raghu is the ancestor of Dasharatha. So then, where's Raghuraj going to get 140 million gold coins? Even though he's a king, he doesn't just have them lying around. So he goes to Indra. Where's Indra going to get these coins from? So he goes to Kuvera. He says, Kuvera, I want you to, he said, I'm Indra, you're Kuvera, so together let's hatch a scheme. And I think a nice scheme would be if we were to turn the rain into gold coins, just on Ayodhya. So then it rained gold coins on Ayodhya, but it rained on top of these, the local tradition is that it rained just on top of these particular type of tree, the apati tree, all around Ayodhya. So then the disciple went to his guru, and he gave him everything, as a disciple does. And the guru counted out 140 million gold coins and said, well, I don't need the rest. And the disciple said, well, what am I going to do? It's for you. He said, no, I'm a Brahmin. I only take what I need. I only need 140 million. I think any city full of Brahmins would be happy with 140 million. So then he says, all right, well, then he went to the king. So then King Raghuraj, who'd made all these arrangements, said, well, I can't have them. He said, I'm a king. Once I give a gift in charity, I can't take it back. You don't know this? Kings give. They never take in charity. It's against our maryad, our dharma. Each ashram, each varna has a maryad. A maryad means a fence in a field that separates the wheat from the rice, the rapeseed oil from the corn, the cabbages from the carrots. Okay? There's a mark in the field. This is called the maryad. So we all have those, but each ashram has different ones, and each varna has different ones. So therefore sannyasis can do some things. Sannyasis can be irresponsible. They don't have to be responsible for anybody. But if a grihasta is responsible, saying, well, my guru is a sannyasi, he's just traveling everywhere freely and preaching, I also want to do these things. No, he's broken his maryad. Grihasta means responsibility for those that you have, firstly, at least for those that you've created. Right? At least for the people that you've created in this world. At least for those who you have entered into a contract with the father of the bride saying, I will provide everything she needs. Okay? To move away from that contract, this is against the maryad. So then a brahmachari, he can't say, yes, I saw that my father was a very spiritual person, and he also looked after his wife and children. He looked after me. I also want to look after wife and children. No, he can't do that. Brahmachari can't do that. As a brahmachari, first of all, he has to become he has to be blessed by the guru. Then he has to go through the ceremony of marriage, which officially, in the eyes of the supreme and the presiding demigods, heralds his initiation into married life. So the vanaprastha, he can't say, well, when we were grihastas, you used to look nice. You used to look nice. You can't turn to his wife and say, well, you used to look nice. You used to comb your hair. You used to wear jewelry. You had nice saris. No. Where is she going to get nice saris from in the middle of a forest? Vanaprasthas leave their comb at home. How's she going to comb her hair if she's in the forest? The whole point is death is coming. Let's get ready for death. Okay? You're not going to comb your hair just before you die. So don't worry about it. If you're not the body, don't comb your hair. Okay? The only thing that you're allowed to take with you is a vanaprastha, because by this time your teeth may not be very good. You're allowed to take a mushala, a pestle and mortar, to grind down, because some of those berries might be a little tough. And, if you're eating nuts in the forest, how are you going to eat nuts when you're sort of 63 and your teeth have gone and you're wandering in the forest? You take a grinding mortar Okay? So for every ashram and every varna, there is a Maryad. So then the king said, well, look, I've given it now, I can't take it back. So then the disciple thought, well, okay, what should I do? So he gave it out. He gave it out to all the people. So today, in Ayodhya, they go to the leaves of a yellow tree this time of year, and they give out tree leaves. They give out apati leaves. So in memory of that day, of this day, Ramchandra Vijaya Dasami, the day when it rained gold, I would like to, and that was the day, I would like to give some gold to Sutapa. Please come and get some gold. Thank you very much. Okay. It's symbolic. So this happened on that day, that Ashtami. Not Ashtami, Dashami. That's right. So on this day also is a very special day for rededicating yourself to spiritual life. We in the Madhva, in the Ramanuja Sampradaya, you get initiated once. This is known as Samashrayanam, and you receive the marks of the chakra and the shank on your shoulders with heated silver brands, and this burns a mark on your. This is known as tapa. This is one of the elements of becoming initiated. So after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, well, we can do it, but let's do it with sandalwood paste. So for hundreds of years after that, they were doing with sandalwood paste. And then there's a story of someone in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, whose name I forget. He was told that, these are the marks of Dwarkadish, so we won't do that anymore. So then that was done. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, later on, he commented, he said that tapa still has to be done, but that heat is done through tapasya. And therefore, Prabhupada says that this tapasya is still done. So when someone comes to live in a Hare Krishna temple, they execute tapasya. So this is the heat involved in the initiation. So the Madhvas, however, in our Sampradaya, they also get rebranded every year, the staunch ones. So today's one of the days, ouch, when you would go to your guru and be rebranded every year. That's a nice communication between guru and disciple. Well, so if each ISKCON devotee, sometimes they don't get to see their guru except once a year. Imagine. So how are you, my dear disciple? How's your sadhana? Everything going okay? Okay. All right, so while you've been waiting, I've been heating up the brands. If you just come forward. I was in one place where one of the acharyas, the Madhva acharyas, this was in Bangalore, they were installing beginning a temple, and there was some people who had they'd just been how do you call it, rebranded, and they came out, and I said, "Can I see?" And it was quite a significant burn mark. It's not quite. It's the skin, but it leaves a mark, and they were happy. Then I went to see the guru, paid my obeisances, and he said, "Oh, ISKCON, very good. No branding. We have our ISKCON brand." So on this day also was born Madhvacharya. And of course today is a very special day because Madhva is one of our, you could say, he gives his name when we tell people officially the long name for our Sampradaya. We say the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So that's Madhva, not Madhava. Madhava is the name of Krishna. Madhva refers to Madhu or honey. His parents were known as Madhyageha Bhatta and the wife Vedavati. He was their son. They had performed 12 years of tapasya. 12 years of tapasya at the Ananteshwara temple in Udupi. There was already a pre-existing temple in Udupi. And this boy, he was born in 1238, not so long ago in our, by our reckoning. I was in America once in Minneapolis, and I like old churches. So there was a sign that said, Ancient Church. I thought, an ancient church in America. And I went to follow the signs for an ancient church. Ancient, 1863. So for a British person, someone who lives here, ancient means at least 1,000 years old. And when we go to Stonehenge, at least, 7,000 years ago. We're doing ancient here. So the word ancient here means something different over there. But the word ancient in India, my word, you're talking many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. So 1238 is really, in the cosmic clock, is really just last week. 1238 AD. So he was born with the name of Vasudeva, and he became initiated quite early on. Normally you get initiated at 8 years old. Between 8 and 12. Very last time you can get initiated is like 16, 17, something like that, traditionally. So he received his mantras. His guru was known as Achyuta Pragya. Achyuta Pragya. But even at the age of 8, when his guru was speaking, and occasionally this happens in our sampradaya as well, that the guru is speaking and the disciple points out some faults with the guru. Sometimes it happens. Anyway, he pointed out 32 mistakes that his guru had made during one class. This was either a young boy who was becoming very precocious, or he was very specially gifted. Anyway, the guru said, each of those 32 mistakes that you pointed out, I agree with them. His guru was a Advaita. So then he later became a guru of his own guru. And then he became chosen as the next successor in that particular lineage of that sampradaya. So he became known as Ananda Tirtha. Ananda Tirtha. And then later on as Madhu Acharya or Madhvacharya. So there was only one guru at a time. When Ramanujacharya, just before he passed away, he chose 74 gurus to succeed him. And this he did for geographical reasons. He was spread all over. But the Madhva Sampradaya at that time was only located in one place. There was no, should we say, missionary activity really going on. There had been 21 different commentators of the Vedanta Sutra. And of course, to be an Acharya, you have to give another commentary, or at least extend the glories of the previous commentary. So, Madhvacharya, who was very young at this time, he went all the way to Badri, right up in the Himalayas. Badri Narayan is there, a very ancient deity. And he sat in silence and he fasted for 48 days until Srila Vyasadeva himself appeared to him in a vision. And so sometimes we think he just went there and it was just a question of finding the right spot, and he came to Vyasadeva's ashram. But no, he meditated for 48 days. Now, he had written a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita called the Gita Bhashya. If you write a commentary on a book, it's called a Bhashya. If you write a commentary on a Bhashya, someone else's Bhashya, it's called a Tika. If you write a commentary on a Tika, which is a commentary on a Bhashya, which is a commentary on a Shastra, it's called a Tipani. So Tipani, Tika, Bhashya, like that. So he'd written the Gita Bhashya. And Srila Vyasadeva was very pleased. Great, finally I said something that Sutapa's writing down. So Ka-ching. You know you've scored if Sutapa writes something down. Or if Radha Govinda reaches for his phone. He's not texting somebody in the car park, he's writing something. So after this, in the Sampradaya, they say that Vyasadeva was his guru. And we say that also. We don't say that Achyuta Pragya was his guru. Their Sampradaya, or at least their Parampara rather, is different from ours. We would recognize only a few names in the Parampara from Madhva, and Achyuta Pragya would not be there. So although Achyuta Pragya was the Diksha Guru, actually Vyasadeva is considered by them to be the Diksha Guru. There is, I can read out their Parampara if you're interested. But so anyway, he wrote, Madhvacharya wrote 37 books that are still available today. There are many miracles associated with him. When he was a young child, his father was a poor Brahmin. There we go again. Every Brahmin that we ever hear a story about is poor. But what happened? Madhva, the little boy, just by holding tamarind seeds in his hand, he turned the tamarind seeds into gold. When his mother called him for lunch, he was some distance away. And he came in one jump. He bounded in front of his mother. She was startled. Where did you come from? He jumped from one place. So there's a great physicality about Madhva. He was very stout, strong, muscular. Normally when we think of Brahmins, we think of some skinny chap who, because of living next to the bread line, doesn't have a lot of excess fat on him. But Madhva was very stocky. And of course, his miracles were very much in the, we shall hear, they're very physical. One time he was in a place called Bhimanakalu, and there was a rock. There'd been a landslide, and a rock had fallen across the river, and the river wasn't flowing into the town anymore. And if a river doesn't flow into a town, that's kind of the end of the village, because that's where there's no piped water. That's where you get all your water from. So it was an act of great strength that he took the great boulder that 100 men had not been able to move, and he pushed it over to the side and allowing the river to come. One time, he was challenged by a philosopher. Now it's said that the words of the philosophy of Madhvacharya used to come out of his mouth like a hammer. His preaching was like a hammer, that you would know exactly where you stood. You stood on very shaky ground when you were in front of him, because he would quote Shastra like hammer. And of course, you have to quote from Shankaracharya had established. He said, okay, if we're going to argue about this, let's agree what we're all agreed on. If we're going to disagree, let's agree on what we are agreed on. So they eventually agreed on 3 things. And these became the 3 foundational points through which you have to argue any philosophy up until today. And that was the Vedanta Sutra. Okay? Vedanta Sutra. We know it was written by Srila Vyasadeva. So if you're going to argue about Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra is a compendium of verses plus commentary from the Upanishads. So Upanishads, that's another. And finally, there's an Upanishadic discourse which is known by everybody, and that is known as the Gita Upanishad, or the Bhagavad Gita. So these 3 books became known as the Trayi, these 3 books. And if you want to argue on anything, the beginning point, the prasthan, has to be these prasthana Trayi, these 3 books. If you're going to argue on anything, argue on these 3 books. Now, to those, the Gaudiyas are the Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra, Bhagavad Gita. And then, of course, Jiva Goswami, in our tradition, he argues, he said, we have to see that Srila Vyasadev's own commentary on the Vedanta Sutra was the book that begins with the same verse as the Vedanta Sutra. Janmadyasya yataha. You have to say that Srila Vyasadeva wrote his own commentary, and that was by the person who had illuminated him in the beginning. Narada Muni asked him to write this commentary on everything that he'd already written. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam. And Jiva Goswami writes the Tattva Sandarbha mainly to show that it's not only Prasthana Trayi, but it's Prasthana Chaturthi. It's the it's the four things. However, Srimad Bhagavatam is not accepted by everyone. So if you want to argue, which I thoroughly recommend that you do because it strengthens the mind, then you argue from these three things. Normally we don't really get a chance to exercise ourselves in this area, do we? We're so busy dealing with New Age, flim-flam and vague arguments from all kinds of other so-called shastras. But if you sit down in India with someone, these Prasthana Trayi will serve you, so learn some verses from there. And throughout Prabhupada's purports, of course, you'll find that he quotes Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra, and of course Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada quotes how many verses from Bhagavad Gita? How many verses? Now what they've done is they've put a computer and they've gone through everything Prabhupada ever said or wrote, and they've analyzed how many verses he used and how many times he used them. And it's a wonderful collection. If anybody wants one, I'll send that to you. But these are the verses of Bhagavad Gita that Prabhupada used to prove throughout his 12 years. And I think there's about, Hare Krishna, there's around 500 verses. 500 of the 700 Prabhupada uses in his preaching. So anyway, someone came before Madhvacharya, and he didn't have to quote very much. He said, I just want you to witness the power of Vishnu, because his main part of his philosophy was Hari Sarvottama. Hari Sarvottama. Hari is Vishnu is the highest. So then he just had some mung beans in his hand, some green mung beans. Okay? He was holding them in his hand. He threw them on the floor. He said, watch. And as the opponent was watching, they grew into sprouts, they grew into plants, and they grew into flower-bearing plants. And as the flowers came on the plant, he said, I think I've proved my point. And the other person was, he said, you've defeated me. So the famous story, well, I'll tell you one more. He trained his disciples not only in Vedanta and Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita, but he also trained his disciples in physical exercises. He had them doing physical exercise, and they all became very strong and muscular. And sometimes people asked him, why are you doing that? He said, well, because in order to challenge all the Mayavadis, you have to be fit. You have to be strong in mind and strong in body. Okay? Just thought you might like to know that. But he had a large body. One time he was challenged by his disciples. He had 15 disciples around him. He said, right, we're going to have a wrestling match. Come on, take me on, take me down. And they all attacked him all at one time. And within a few seconds, he had wrestled them. All of his disciples were on the floor. One time he was challenged by a professional wrestler. And Madhva just folded his arms and he said, all right. He said, if you can, please, let me see how strong you are. You don't look very strong. He said, Maharaj, Swami, he said, you're a Brahmin. He said, I don't really fight with Brahmins. He said, I don't really fight with wrestlers. He said, because you're all so weak. He said, so just try and move my toe. And everybody laughed. Everybody in the town laughed. But he tried to move his toe, and he couldn't even move his toe. So they had to see what a person, this is a special person. One time they said, all right, well, let's have an eating contest. So they had an eating contest, and they were having a contest about eating bananas. And Madhva just ate and ate and ate and ate. There was no end to the bananas that he could eat. So we're dealing with someone that was a little different here. But he was so big and so strong. And one time he said to a little boy, he said, are there some holy places in this village? The little boy said, yes, sir. He said, will you put me on your shoulder and take me to them? He said, me? Put you on my shoulder? He said, yes, I'm a little tired. So he sat on the boy's shoulder, and the little boy took him all around to the holy places in that village, and he was weightless. So then we have his identity, that he is the son of the wind. Is Vayu. He's an appearance of Hanuman. Hence the jumping, the strength, the wrestling, the eating, all these other things. They all indicate to his identity. So the greatest miracle that we can see today was that one time he was in Malpe. Malpe is a seaside village. You can go there today, and it's about 8 kilometers away from Udupi. Udupi is where he was born. Actually, Pajakshetra is where he was born. His parents did tapasya in Udupi, and then about 12 kilometers down the road is a place called Pajakshetra. It's a very quiet village, even today. When you go there, there's just, all you'll hear is, young brahmacharis chanting the Vedas. If you really, really want to go on a spiritual retreat, go to Pajakshetra, because that's all there is there. And you can sit in Madhvacharya's place and read the commentaries of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and you'll be very enlightened. I speak from experience. And then someone will feed you. And they've just redone the brahmachari ashram there, so you'll be very welcome. And the brahmacharis will chant for you if you ask them nicely. So anyway, he was born in Pajakshetra, and it's part of the area that was reclaimed by Parshuram when he threw his axe. He threw his axe into the sea, and the sea rose up, and this area was there. Anyway, so he was chanting his rounds at Malpe, and he was looking out to sea, and there was a ship, and there are 2 stories. One is that the ship went down, and Madhva went into the water and rescued a big block of tilak. The other, which we normally tell, is that he waved his top cloth. The ship was averted from the rocks. They said, what can we do for you? We've just come from Dwarka. We're going down the coast. He said, well, you have nothing that I want to have. I'm a sannyasi. He said, well, what about tilak? He said, oh yes, tilak is always very helpful, because they use the same tilak as we do. Or rather, we should say, we use the same tilak as they do. This is the Gopi Chandan tilak. My dear friends, we do not use tilak from anywhere else. That is a sampradaya other than the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya sampradaya. Please remember this. Please remember this. Our tilak is Gopi Chandan. And if you want some very nice verses about the glories of Gopi Chandan and why we wear it, I will send these verses to you. This is Prabhupada did not wear any other tilak apart from Gopi Chandan. So Madhvacharya took this big block of Gopi Chandan. No one else could move it. And inside was a beautiful deity of Krishna. And the account is that this is this cowherd boy form of Krishna standing with the churning rod. He's standing up straight. He's not standing like this with the flute, but he's standing with the churning rod, because this is a churning rod, the sign of a cowherd boy. 2 signs of a cowherd boy, or 3 signs. One is a stick and a rope to bring the cows in. One is a flute to play to the cows, and the other is the churning rod, because what are you going to do with the cow's milk? You're going to churn it. So Krishna is standing with the churning rod. And this form of Krishna, like this, is made of shaligram, jet black, and it has been worshipped every day in the place where Madhva installed him. And this is in Udupi, and that is the main temple in Udupi. And you can go there, and the sannyasis are very, very busy. When Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati began to initiate his devotees into sannyasa ashram, he sent them to Udupi to see how other sannyasis lived. Because in the Gaudiya Sampradaya there was no sannyasis. So what are you going to do? There's no tradition of sannyas. The last sannyasi was, hundreds of years ago. So he sent them to, they went to see the Ramanuja sannyasis, they went to see the... So then they came back and they said, Guru Maharaj, he said, in the morning, the sannyasis are running. They're running to take a bath, then they're running to do one arti, they're running to do another arti, they're running. They're not peaceful. They're running. He said, yes, they've understood what bhakti is. It's not like you. No laziness. So they're running to different sevas. So then, I don't have too long. So then we say, let's say, the philosophy of Madhvacharya is all based on the superiority of Vishnu. The superiority of Vishnu. And that Vishnu is the highest truth. Now that doesn't come as any surprise to us. But believe you me, at that time in India, there was many competing versions of the truth. And each and every one of them could be proved from the Vedanta. You'll be surprised how you can prove anything other than Krishna's the Supreme Personality of Godhead from Vedanta. But you can if you have the inclination. So Madhva felt that he had to reestablish the truth. So he talked about the superiority of Vishnu, Hari Sarvottama. And then his next principle was Satyam Jagat. The universe is real. And sometimes we even use this expression. I was here the other day. Somebody was saying, the universe is all an illusion. No, it's not an illusion. It's real. It's illusory. Illusory, but the illusion is within you. You're projecting your understanding of the permanence of the universe because of your attachment to the universe. It's temporary. Every manifestation that you see is a combination of the modes of nature. Therefore, it is temporary. And in that sense, you're never dealing with something real. This, in one sense, you could say, what is it? Well, before it was a tree, now it's a book stand, and in the future it will be compost. So what is it? What's the truth? Well, the truth is that it has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an end. So everything is in a state of flux. So to say that this is real is true, at the same time to say that it is permanent is false. So that's the illusion. But what the Shankarites were saying is that no, everything is an illusion. It's a mental projection from the conditioned self. So then you get into different arguments about, okay, where is that illusion? What is the locus of that illusion? What is the place where that illusion resides? Is illusion real? This is the question. Is avidya real? Is illusion real? If illusion is real, then how is that something separate from Brahman? Firstly, how does Brahman become illusioned? And is that illusion real? And if illusion is not real, then how does Brahman become influenced by it? So if it is real, how is it separate from Brahman? Because nothing is separate from Brahman, it says so in Vedanta. So this is the main point. And when someone becomes arguing from Madhva's point of view, these are some of the main points that he will use. So then he did something called, he said, Veda Satyam. The differences are real. Veda means difference. Satyam means of sat, of eternality, eternally. So he said that there are 5 differences. He said there's a difference between God and the soul, a difference between God and matter. And all this kind of thing is something that you learn on the Bhakti course, and you just say, yeah, of course, of course, of course, of course. It's not of course if it doesn't exist. It's like here we have a light bulb. And if I was to say to you, isn't it amazing? Isn't it absolutely amazing that we have light coming from an artificial sun? And you'd look at me as if I was a little bit sick, because we take it for granted. But 100 years ago, or 150 years ago, you couldn't take it for granted because it didn't exist. Someone had to invent it. So the tendency is to become very casual about the philosophical elements that we know to be, we know to be real, and not to examine them in order to prove them to ourselves, because we take them for granted. But in Madhva's time, you could not take these things for granted. So there's a difference between, these differences are real. So how can there be differences in Brahman? Well then, Madhva was building on the Brahman with attributes. And of course the way that Jiva Goswami finally gives a final conclusion to it, he says that he uses the word Shakti, that the Supreme has Shaktis. And these Shaktis are simultaneously different from him and non-different from him. So this is the sort of balance we give to both Ramanuja and Madhva. So then he did something called Taratamya Vichar. Taratamya means hierarchy. In modern life, nobody likes hierarchies, do they? They all think that hierarchy is corrupt. However, Taratamya is a feature of life, it's a feature of the world, it's a feature of the universe. But according to your philosophy, you will establish this Taratamya in different ways. So Taratamya Vichar means that he had to say who was Durga and where was she? Who was Shiva and where was he? Where is Brahma? Where is he? Where is Parabrahma? What's the difference between Brahma, Brahman, Parabrahma, Paratattva? He had to establish all these things. And who is Krishna? So then, Madhva's philosophy, moving away from the Prasthana Trayi that we've talked about, he said actually the Puranas are the Puranas and the Itihasas are the 5th Veda. See, Bhagavad Gita is Veda because it's Upanishads. Upanishads are Veda because they're Upanishads, and that's part of the Vedas. Vedanta Sutra is part of the Vedas because it's a bhashya on the Vedas, on the Upanishads. But the Puranas, different people had different understandings. So he reconciled the Puranas, and he said that these are an equal dimension of Vedic truth. And we would say, yeah, of course. Because when we came to Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada presented us everything on a plate. We had Bhagavad Gita and we had Srimad Bhagavatam at the same time. But if you go in India, everybody believes in Bhagavad Gita and no one believes in Srimad Bhagavatam, except in certain parts of India where you may not be able to prove to the acharya of a lineage that something is real based on the teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Ramanujas accept the Vishnu Purana. Even Madhvacharya didn't accept the stealing of the bewilderment of Brahma. He says, no, that's something that's crept in. How could the head of the Sampradaya, Brahma, be bewildered by Krishna? That doesn't make sense. So he said that's crept in there somewhere. So if you do read the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it is got a Madhva commentary, you get to the bit where the stealing of the cowherd boys, and it's just not there. It's been stolen. So then Madhva also started something for the common people. He started putting things into Kannada, the local language, and he started something called the Dasa Sahitya. Dasa Sahitya means the poetry of the dasas, the poetry of the slaves. Slave meaning the servants of Hari. So these Dasa Sahitya performances, they can go on for a long time. I went to one last time I was in, or a couple of times ago when I was in India, and it went on for 5 days. It's what we would call a 24-hour kirtan, except that it wasn't 24-hour, it was 5 days. And there are different songs, different groups, different kirtan groups, and they come, and it's all about the Supreme Lord. And the songs are beautiful. If you read the English translations, they're fantastic. Some of the famous ones are Purandar Das. Purandar Das is very famous. If you can just drop the name of Purandar Das, you will find many people go, oh yes, yes, I learned those songs when I was a boy. You know Purandar Das? And you go, oh yes, of course. And they'll think you'll be invited in for lunch. So Purandar Das. And Kanaka. Kanaka is very famous. You go to Udupi today, and there's a window called Kanaka's window. Because Kanaka, the thing about Madhvacharya is there was the danger, there was a lot of Christianity in Madhvacharya's time. There was Islam coming in. There was Christianity coming in. So he wanted to keep the Varnashram system very solid. He didn't want, mingling between the different castes and the different religions, because he could see that if you do that, through intermarriage and through making the caste system very weak, you would lose. You would lose Sanatana Dharma. So he kept everybody very strict, to the point of teaching that there is a difference between a Brahmin soul and a Sudra soul. And a difference between a Vaishya soul and a Kshatriya soul. And a difference between a male soul and a female soul. These are interesting parts of his teaching. And he was teaching for a particular purpose. Sometimes theology is, eternal, and sometimes theology is of the moment. The theology has to be according to what will help people come to Hari at that particular time. So Kanaka, he wasn't allowed into the temple. He was a great dasa, he was initiated, but he came from a tribe, and he wasn't therefore allowed into the temple. But what he would do is one morning he would go and he would sit outside the back of the temple. It's like someone who would sit at the back of, it was just a small room like this, size of this room. Hello, sir. Welcome home. It was just like if someone was sitting on the chair, the other side of the temple here, and for some reason, I don't know why we wouldn't let anyone into Bhaktivedanta Manor, but we didn't let him in. And he was just singing songs of devotion to Radha Gokulananda. Then one day we came down from Mangalati, and we found that Radha and Gokulananda had both turned 180 degrees to face the back wall. Can you imagine what shock that would give us? Can you imagine? And we knew that this person had been sitting outside all that time because we wouldn't let him in. So this was Kanaka Das. So immediately what they did was the deity was in that position. And now if you go to the temple, you have to go, you walk in the main temple door, and then you have to walk around to what previously was the back of the deity room, and there you have darshan. And lined up with the deities is this window that they've created. So this is Kanaka's window. So as you're walking around the Udupi temple, you have to go and touch Kanaka's window, because this window was created because of the desire of Udupi Krishna himself. I must tell you that when you look at the 32 names in the Bhagavad Gita as part of our parampara, 5 of those names are we look at them as this one initiated this one initiated this one, etc., etc., and it's a chain. because that's what's happening with us, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then there was Gorkishore Das Babaji, and then he was initiated by him, and he was friend of him, and he was initiated by him, and on it goes, and this is parampara. However, at that point in the parampara, Madhva had 5 disciples. He had 5 disciples, and they were all there at the same time. One didn't initiate the other. They just happened to be 5 disciples. And what they are is the head pontiff, the pope, if you like, of the particular, of the temple, the acharya of the temple, in succession. So then we have different ones. So where are they? We have Padmanabha, after Madhvacharya. Then Nrihari, who they call Narahari. Then we have Madhava Tirtha. Then we have Akshobhya. So they were all friends. They're all friends. Perhaps one was a junior friend, okay? But they looked after the temple in every sort of 7 years. Or one looked after it for 11 years, one looked after it for 7 years. And then they changed, because around the one temple that Madhva had established for Udupi Krishna was 7 others. And these 7 others each had a head sannyasi. So the tradition now, which they've had for the last 750 years, 775 years, is that a sannyasi collects funds for 14 years and then spends it for 2 years as he's looking after the deity worship. And that's how they've been going for hundreds of years. And it works. Madhva also started something called Yakshagana. Yakshagana is a popular sort of Leela play. Usually it's quite spectacular, actually. If you go to that part of Karnataka, it's quite spectacular. There's lots of fire and demons and all kinds of fireworks and different things going on. Then came Jayatirtha. Jayatirtha was known as the Tikacharya. He was known as the ox. They used to tell him that in your last life you were the ox that pulled the cart upon which Madhvacharya's books were stored. He commented on 18 of Madhvacharya's books, and the most famous is something called Nyaya Sudha. Nyaya Sudha is something that is venerated by the Madhva Sampradaya even today. So Nyaya Sudha is the perfection of commentary on Madhva. Purandar Das, who we talked about, he was the grandfather of Carnatic music, which is a southern Indian tradition. Everybody knows him. And he wrote, get this, he wrote 475,000 songs. 475,000 songs. They're still being sung today. Like I said, I went to this performance and it was 5 days long. And, I had someone sitting by me that was translating it. And, okay. Anyway, then we have someone called Raghavendra. I'll just finish up here. Raghavendra, he is extremely famous, and he comes from a place called Mantralayam. If you know this word, if you go on a South Indian tour, Raghavendra of Mantralayam, and you ask someone, please tell me the miracles that he did. His miracles fill 6 volumes of books. 6 volumes of books. He was a miracle man. And one of those men was a Victorian tax collector working for Queen Victoria, collecting taxes, and he went to the people who were looking after they call it the Vrindavana. Vrindavana is a samadhi, we would say samadhi. It's funny, they call it a Vrindavana, which means, the eternal forest. So anyway, he walked into his samadhi while he was still alive. This is Raghavendra. So then there was discussion, is he still alive inside there, is he not? So the tax collector came, and this was, like a good, 80 years later. And tax collector came and he said, well, this is a Hindu establishment, you're all going to have to pay taxes. He said, we can't pay taxes, there's no deity, there's just the Vrindavana. He said, no, I'm afraid you're registered as a Hindu establishment, you have to pay something. He said, well, if you want to collect taxes, you have to go and see our Lord and Master He said, okay, where is he? He said, he's inside that, he's inside that place there. It was like, like that. He said, all right, I'll go and see him. So he went inside and closed the door. And from the outside, the disciples gathered round and they could hear voices inside. They could hear the voices discussing. And after some time, he came out and he said, well, I think that's all right. Everything's in order. Your master has given me some rice, and I think that'll do for the taxes. And what he'd given him was some dry yellow rice. They mix the rice with turmeric, and this is what the acharya will give to everyone, because you can take it home. So they said, well, you realize our acharya's, he's... Anyway, they were going to tell him, but they said, let's leave it as it is. But then this was later reported in the English newspaper of the time, so you can still look that up, like the Times of India or something like that. But the fact that he met Raghavendra, almost 100 years after he disappeared, and spoke with him. He was an Englishman, absolutely no belief in Hinduism. And there are many stories at that time, actually, of different meetings. And that's it. That's it. All I can say to you is that if you want to go to a place where Krishna is worshipped and has been worshipped in a very wonderful way, even before Krishna was worshipped by our Goswamis in Vrindavan. Of course, I say our Goswamis in Vrindavan, but you may not know that two of the Goswamis, their grandparents came from this place, from Karnataka. And they just went to live in, it's not that all the 6 Goswamis were Bengali and everybody was Bengali. They were from South India. So they came. Gopal Bhatta was from the Srirangam, and another 2 Goswamis their families were from Karnataka. So it's interesting, the connections. If you can, go to Udupi. If you can, sometime go to Bombay, and you catch a train at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and by 3 o'clock the next morning, you'll be in Udupi. And as you come out of the train station, the first thing you see in Udupi is a super larger than life-size, beautiful deity of Krishna. And immediately you'll know I'm at the right train station. And it's a short ride into the town. If you go into the town at 3 o'clock in the morning, particularly if you go through the festival of Lakshadweep, at 3 o'clock in the morning, you'll hear a drum. And this is a drum about this wide. They play it with a big stick, and you'll hear boom, 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 boom. And you'll think, oh, that's interesting. They're going to wake people up. I wonder why they're playing a drum. Oh, I know. They're waking people up for Mangalati. They're waking people up for Mangalati. So in a few minutes later, you hear boom, 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 boom. And by coming up to Mangalati time, 15 minutes before Mangalati, you will hear boom, 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 boom. It means get up, get up, get up. And at 6 o'clock, if you're really, really tired, then a big cannon goes off, and it goes off all over the town every morning. Get up, come to see Krishna. So in the evening, 3 times a week, there's a Rath Yatra. 3 times a week. And at Lakshadweep, special festival, the whole town is lit up with 100,000 candles. 100,000 candles burning all over, because the town is a square. So the Rath goes around the square. And everybody gets a chance to pull. And there's elephants and all kinds of fireworks and other kinds of things, all kind of songs being sung. And it's a wonderful place to go. And if you can have some Mahaprasadam at that place, you will be delighted. It's not North Indian cooking. It's a different type of cooking altogether. And you will like it. Very nice. And some of Madhva's favorite preparations will be found there. There's like a loaf made from steamed rice, eaten with sambar and date chutney. Very nice. All right. With that sweet taste in your mouth, I will leave you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, the deliverer of Madhva's philosophy to us today, and the preserver of the perfection of Vedanta Sutra commentary, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.